Are you an instructional designer who is looking to branch out from ADDIE and start using some of the other instructional design models? Or maybe you're brand new to instructional design. You're just kind of wondering what's the difference between all these different models? Well, either way, I've got you covered. Hey, it's Jeff with YourLearningCareer.com. Now, the purpose of this video is not to bash ADDIE. I'm not trying to discourage you either from using ADDIE. I use parts of ADDIE all the time. And I think ADDIE is a great thing to have in your toolkit. By the way, if you want to know, I'm not going to cover a lot about ADDIE in this video, but if you want to know more about ADDIE, be sure to check out my ADDIE Explained by a Star Wars Nerd video. I'll link to it here and in the description below. So while I'm not going to tell you don't use ADDIE, I would tell you that you should always be challenging yourself and looking for new ways to approach your training design. So the first one I want to talk about is called the Dick and Carey model. This comes from the book, The Systematic Design of Instruction. And this is actually the model that I learned as part of my master's program. So the Dick and Carey model is a 10-step model. And as you can see, a lot of the pieces of this model are similar to ADDIE. So for example, there is an analysis phase. There's also design, development, evaluation. It's all in there in the Dick and Carey model, but it has more steps and it is a bit more of a formal process. So I usually tell people, when you're in the real world of instructional design, you're not necessarily having to follow a particular process exactly as it's written. Now, of course, as part of my coursework, yes, I did have to follow this model. And I want to show you this. So this was something that I had to put together as part of following the Dick and Carey model. I had to identify an instructional goal. I had to put the steps to the instructional goal. And then as part of each performance objective, I had to identify condition, behavior, and criteria. So I would say as part of the master's program, I thought this was really beneficial. It really helped me get deep into the instructional design process, and I believe it helped me become a much better instructional designer. Now, do I use this model in my real world projects? No, I do not. In the real world, I just don't have time to sit there and think through every single performance objective and criteria and et cetera, et cetera. It's too much. It's too formal. So I don't find it to be very practical for my real world instructional design projects, but I am glad I found it. Now, if you're interested in finding out more about Dick and Carey, I will put links to the book in the description. Next model I want to talk about is action mapping. Action mapping was created by Kathy Moore. This is a model I discovered probably about 10 to 12 years ago. And when I did, it was like love at first sight. At that time, Kathy had a website called the E-Learning Blueprint. That's where I first discovered action mapping. She has since written a book called Map It, which again, I'll link to in the description. Here's how this works. So you can see with action mapping, you start with the goal. What is the actionable thing that you want your learners to do? Then you identify the behaviors that they need to demonstrate in order to achieve that goal. Then you design the activities that will give them the practice they need to get to that behavior, to get to that goal. And then finally, you develop the information. When I discovered this really spoke to me because something that always frustrated me with training classes was everybody always wants to cram as much information as they possibly can into the training. And I always felt like there was just so much unnecessary information. It's like, wait a minute, why are we wasting precious class time on all of this information that's more nice to know? Like this is stuff we could throw into, we could put into a job aid or put it out on the company intranet. Like why are we wasting time in class? And that's what this model does. It really cuts to the chase of what is really important. Like what do people really need to be able to do? And that's where you focus your design. For me in the real world, this is usually where I start. I start with, okay, what is it that we want them to be able to do? And then I go from there. This is really great at cutting through the crap and really getting to the heart of what people need to be able to do. And then the last model I wanted to introduce you to is called SAM. SAM stands for the Successive Approximation Model. This was developed by Michael Allen. And if you've been in e-learning for any amount of time, you know who Michael Allen is. He developed this approach. And in fact, he wrote a book called Leaving ADDIE for SAM. And I'll link to that in the description. That's a great place to start if you want to learn more about SAM. I guess one of the disadvantages with ADDIE is it's pretty linear, ADDIE, right? And in real life, you usually don't just move from one to the other and leave everything else behind. And that's what SAM addresses. SAM is considered an iterative model, meaning that SAM acknowledges that things evolve and change throughout the process. So when you look at the SAM model, it does have a lot of the same elements as ADDIE, but it also acknowledges that need for revisiting and reviewing. It's not just you design it and you're done. Oftentimes you're going to design something, you're going to have it reviewed, and then you're going to need to make some more updates. So I can tell you that based on my real world corporate experience, this very much resonates, because typically when I design something and then it gets reviewed by a subject matter expert or someone on my team or both, it is usually going to come back to me with some changes, and I need to make some changes, some updates, and it continues like that. So it is very iterative. So those are just a few ways that you can go beyond ADDIE. As I said, I'm going to put some links to resources in the description below, so be sure to check those out. And I would very much encourage you on your next project, pick one of these models, try it out, see what you think. You might be surprised at how much better your training is from just trying a new model. As always, I want to thank you for hanging out, for watching this video, and we will see you next time.